So let's dive into a world where shadows come to life and echoes of the past linger. Night shift. Kenner. Tim had been working at the old bowling alley for over 5 years, and never before had anything out of the ordinary happened. But one night, after staying after closing for inventory, he heard strange noises. At first, he thought it was one of his co-workers forgetting to leave, but quickly realized there had to be one in the building. The sounds of pins being hit were getting louder and clearer, even though the lanes were empty. As Tim got closer, he saw the balls rolling by themselves, as if invisible players were playing a game. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Eerie Whispers channel. Here you will find stories that will make your blood run cold in your veins. Prepare for a journey into a world of the unexplained and mysterious. That night, the bowling alley seemed like a completely different place to Tim. The silence was broken only by the echo of distant thunderstorms, adding to the atmosphere. When the sounds of strikes became unbearably loud, he ventured to look at the lanes through the video surveillance system. On the monitor screen, he saw the balls moving slowly across the lanes as if they were being thrown by an invisible hand. Suddenly, one of the balls stopped right in front of the camera, and Tim thought that something like a human face flashed in his reflection. He jerked back in surprise and almost fell. Trying to calm down, Tim reminded himself that there had to be a reasonable explanation for what was happening. He decided to check the paths in person, armed with a flashlight. The light from the flashlight cast long shadows on the floors and walls, making the setting even more eerie. As he approached the walkway where the strange sounds had started, he noticed that the air around him had become incredibly cold. Tim froze in place when he heard a whisper right behind him. Looking around, he saw no one. The whispers grew louder, and now it seemed as if the voices filled the entire room. The words were unintelligible, but the tone sounded demanding. Suddenly, all the balls went into motion at the same time, rolling down the lanes and knocking down the pins with a crash that made Tim shudder. Unable to endure this nightmare any longer, Tim rushed toward the exit without turning around. Once outside, he took a deep breath of the night air, trying to calm his racing heart. When he looked around and found nothing unusual, he realized he had never felt such fear before. The next day, Tim told his co-workers about his experience, but no one believed him, writing it off as fatigue and overwork. Tim knew, however, that it was more than just imagination. From then on, he was never alone in the bowling alley and always tried to finish his work before nightfall. Forgotten ball. Jenna discovered an old bowling ball in the back room that no one even knew was there. The ball was covered in strange symbols that looked nothing like anything familiar. Deciding to try it out in a game, Jenna didn't expect that every throw would be accompanied not only by falling pins, but also by strange squeals and whispers coming from under the lanes. The next day, the ball disappeared as mysteriously as it had appeared. After the first incident, Jenna became obsessed with unraveling the mystery of the orb. She began researching, trying to find any information about the symbols that covered its surface. Her search led her to ancient books on magic and the occult, where she discovered that the symbols could be ancient signs used in rituals to summon spirits. Realizing the potential danger associated with the orb, Jenna decided to take it back to the back room and forget about this strange experience. But it was too late. Over the next few nights, she began to hear whispers and squeals not only at the bowling alley, but also at home. The nights became restless, filled with nightmares of shadows slithering across the walls of her room. Concerned and exhausted, Jenna sought help from a local paranormal expert. With his help, they performed a cleansing ritual at the bowling alley, trying to rid themselves of any connections the orb might have made. The expert warned Jenna that such objects often serve as vessels for spirits or energies, and that using them could lead to unpredictable and dangerous consequences. A few days after the ritual, the whispers and squeals finally stopped, and Jenna was able to sleep soundly again. However, she was never again able to shake the feeling of being watched by invisible eyes, especially when she was at the bowling alley. This experience changed Jenna forever. she became more wary and respectful of objects and stories shrouded in mystery and magic. Though the mysterious ball was never found, the story of it and the strange events that followed its appearance remained a reminder that some mysteries are best left unsolved. Midnight Visitor. A2. Claire had always loved late-night bowling games with her friends. However, one night when they were alone in the club, they noticed a figure standing at the end of one of the lanes. The figure was motionless and silent, and its eyes glowed in the darkness. As they tried to get closer, the figure vanished into thin air, leaving behind only a feeling of indescribable fear. This event deeply shook Claire and her friends, but they decided not to tell anyone for fear of not being believed. However, with each visit to the bowling alley, the feeling of something invisible and sinister grew stronger and stronger. Claire began to notice that strange events were not only happening at night. Bowling balls moved on their own, even when no one was playing, and automatic pin collectors sometimes activated for no apparent reason. One day, Claire decided to spend the night bowling with her friends to solve the mystery of the Midnight Visitor once and for all. They armed themselves with flashlights and a camera, hoping to capture any paranormal phenomena. As the clock struck midnight, the air in the room suddenly cooled and the darkness seemed even thicker. That's when they saw the figure at the end of the walkway again. This time, Claire and her friends were not frightened. They slowly approached the figure until they could see it more clearly. To their surprise, an old man in vintage bowling clothes stood in front of them. His eyes were full of sadness, and he seemed as matter-of-fact as they were. The old man began to tell them his story. He was one of the founders of this bowling club and spent the best years of his life here. After his death, he couldn't leave his favorite place, continuing to watch the game every night. Claire and her friends were touched by his story. They promised to dedicate the next bowling game to the old man's memory to honor his soul and perhaps help him find peace. After that night, the Midnight Visitor never appeared again, but Claire and her friends always felt his kind presence during their late-night games. The story became a legend among bowling alley visitors, a reminder that sometimes the souls of those who love the place can stay here forever, sharing their passion for the game with anyone who rolls a ball down the lane in search of the perfect strike. Thank you for joining us today on the Eerie Whispers channel. We hope these stories made your heart beat faster. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more horrifying stories. For now, farewell, and remember, fear is only the beginning of your journey into the unknown.